and pick up where they leave off. You know, this kind of thing. It's just everybody's just consumed with their own little petty squabbles now, and they don't really have even the opportunity, let alone the inclination, that these elder patriots did. What is it? What has caused that? Why are people so apathetic nowadays that they don't want to or can't do what those in our past who have really inspired us and indeed really given us the fuel, the get-go out there? Why isn't anybody really improving on that? It just seems like we're still running to catch up with those in our past who were way ahead of their time.
Yeah, the younger guys do seem to be like a carbon copy and a poor copy of the older guys, the legends, you know. But one thing we do have is this internet radio now. It's a great form. It's much better than we had when we were coming up. Like not only did we to get the word out, we had to put these newspapers out, but we also used to make posters and go out in the middle of the night in New York City with these posters and poster up on the wall with our conspiracy theories and our information and stuff like that. So we're way ahead of that. Okay, with these internet radio shows, we have this. But now what happens with this, though, is now how do they get us? The infighting between all the hosts and all the different stations. And the backbiting and the talking behind each other's back. You get someone on the phone right away, blah, 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 they want to talk about everybody else. Now, I grew up with this. I grew up with the original COINTELPRO stuff. I've seen it firsthand when I was in high school, coming out of high school, my early 20s. I saw the real COINTELPRO, and I saw how they divide people and they divide and conquer.
It's really sad.
But now they have it to such a science. Yeah.
Sorry,
they can whisper in people's ear and get people to work against each other and talk about each other behind each other's back and even on the radio. And it seems like anybody you try to ally with, create an alliance with, they're fighting with someone else you're trying to create an alliance with.
Well, didn't the founding fathers warn against entangled alliances?
I suppose they did.
And this is something that I believe the Patriot movement also needs to recognise. And I hear what you're saying. And in the background of talk radio, you would not believe the stuff that the Patriots tell me about each other. You know, and it comes to the point where even when they're correct, even when they're giving you actual evidence of truthers lying, manipulating, stealing, demonizing, and being full-on COINTELPRO, what occurs to me is that, you know, these are my heroes you're talking about, and you know what happens is you get really demotivated when you find out that the people you respect, the people who were your prime inspiration for fighting for truth and liberty, find out, you know, they just turn out to be something completely different to what your ideal was. And it really depresses you. And I think this might be part of it. This is part of the struggle that we go through every day, is not only do we recognize that there's this evil, you know, massive New World Order overarching agenda with goodness knows how many informants and agents and surveillance and such and blah, blah, blah. But also we're really fighting a war against the negatives of our human condition. And this entire society is almost adapted to bringing those negatives out.
Exactly. One of our weaknesses is our ego. Okay, everybody knows that. And what in the brainwashing, the constant brainwashing, is one of the things that they're constantly pounding into us, is to glorify ourselves and our ego and our sexual desires and our greed. These are the character traits that they're trying to build into us and build into our children, to be greedy, to be sexually perverse in every possible way. So I even have to examine myself constantly and say, how am I being brainwashed and how am I being manipulated and who's handling me? And because everyone, you know, I've worked on some of the biggest news stories, 24-hour news stories in the past few years. The Tiger Woods case was a 24-hour news story. the Charlie Sheen case. Where that I worked behind the scenes on that. My client was the woman he attacked in that hotel room in New York. These big major, the George Zimmerman case, I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
So I've seen how there's a lot of behind the scenes manipulation by a small group in the media, in Hollywood and in the media, these agents and PR guys who can control everything going on in mainstream media. So it comes down, there's a brainwashing that comes down through that and filters into us, our alternative media guys, that we're still manipulated by that. We can't help it. And we're still motivated by those same kind of things.
And what occurs to me as well is that the alternative media is very rarely breaking their own significant stories. What occurs to me is that most of the time what we're doing is looking at what the mainstream media reports and then deconstructing it and then reporting the truth side of it. But what I find significant about that phenomenon is that the mainstream media are still dictating what news we hear about. You know? We can only show people different sides of what the mainstream media isn't saying. And it's just... It's click whoring, basically, right? And
they're driving the agenda. They're driving the agenda. They're driving the locomotive, and we're following along behind them. And what are we doing? Throwing little rocks at them, or whatever we're doing, or bickering amongst ourselves while we do that.
Yeah.
So you're right. We need to come up with our own ideas, our own proposals, and how to change the system, and get these forward, and instead of just bickering about what they're coming forward with.
Well, the problem is we're trying to reach out to, I don't know. Well, hold on a second. I don't try to reach out to the general public. Okay, I'm not trying to wake people up here with this radio show. The point of this radio show is not to cover the news and up-to-date kind of stuff. This is actually just to interview the activists and people of significance who we really should be listening to, people like yourself, not to put too fine a point on it, Ed. Because of the fact that we need to have a personal relationship with those who are delivering us information. I believe we need to know who these people are, we need to know their backstories, and we need to know that they're just real people. And you get lost and you don't know who these real people are if all you're doing is reading significant major media pieces that they're doing all over the time and basically serving the general news agenda. And the reason why I'm not trying to wake people up is because there's many other people doing that. Okay, that's the reason why I use a lot of humor on this show. Because it's not so much waking up that's my motivation. It's actually keeping people awake. Because if you keep hearing all this conspiracy, all this propaganda, all this horrible stuff all around you, you get really depressed, you get really afraid, and it shuts you down. And that's my motivation, is to prevent people from shutting down through all the depression and the scumbaggery and the horrific things that they see and hear on a daily basis.
I agree with you, and humor is very important, and the hippies use humor, and street theater and street performance art. These are the creative things that we need